Today's session is being recorded. We may also use all or part of it in our platforms and publications. We encourage you to get your questions in early, even while the presentation is going on. You may send in your questions by typing them in the chat box. When we call on you for your question, we will turn your mic on. Please state your name and organization before asking your question. We also want to encourage everyone, lahat kayo, to turn on your video during today's session to better engage with our facilitators. If you're able to, we would like to request everyone to turn on your video now. Thank you. We have created a Facebook group for all the participants of the Digital Democracy Training Session. This group will serve as a space to share ideas and support each other in the digital democracy initiatives in our own cities. If you haven't already, if hindi pa kayo naka-join, please join the Facebook group through the link being shared in the chat box. Thank you. To begin today's program, I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the Philippine National Anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang mag-ibig, telas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagatang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw. Ang tula, kawit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iingin. Ang bituin at araw niya kailan ang ay magtitingin. Luman ang araw ng walhagin pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya ng pagkay mga amin, ang mamatay.
Maraming salamat. Please be seated. Before we start today's program, I want to ask everyone if they've already answered the pre-test. Can you give me a thumbs up if you already have? I can see that some of you have. That's great. Kung hindi pa kayo nakasagot, please answer it now. The link is being shared on the chat box. Thank you. To officially start the program, let me call on Catch Ofilada, Senior Policy Officer of the Makati Business Club. Catch?
Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope you're all well. So welcome to our workshop, Digital Democracy, Technology for Community Building and Decision Making. So this is an initiative of the Makati Business Club and the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung's Digital Democracy Project. So we created the project to use tech to bring communities together while others use it to tear us apart. Tingin ko lahat po tayo may examples of the latter half. We also wanted to help governments talk with their constituents and work together on policies that create jobs. So far, we've worked with Pasig, Legazpi, Intramuros, and Iligan to conduct citizen assemblies online. Throughout the years of this project, with our partner LGUs, we've witnessed firsthand how CSOs serve as a bridge between the government and citizens. So it was by reaching out to these CSOs that our online consultations were able to reach affected people. So everything that we have learned in the past 2 years have been condensed into a series of guidebooks on digital democracy, sharing the lessons that we've learned in conducting digital democracy in the middle of the pandemic. Based on these guidebooks, today's activity is designed to empower CSOs to better use digital democracy tools to listen to their communities and partners with the government. By the end of this workshop, we hope that you in the room will be able to conduct your own digital democracy process with your LGU and with your communities. So to conduct the training today, we have Mr. Bong Makalalad, an independent consultant providing services on communication, advocacy, and capacity building to CSOs and NGOs. So Bong has been with us in the Makati Business Club for our policy paper on press freedom in the Philippines. He was also with the Philippine Council for NGO and Certification and with Save the Children and Break the Silence National Network. Bong is also a DILG accredited resource person for CSO capability building for their participation in local development councils and LGUs. So looking forward to today's discussions and breakout sessions. Bong?
Maraming salamat, Catch. Good morning. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Kamusta po kayo? Bago tayo mag-umpisa ngayong araw na to, mas maganda siguro magkakilala muna tayo. Pwede bang magpakilala po kayo very shortly lang na pakilala, very short na introduction like your name, your organization's name, and what does your organization do? So can we start? Sino pong mauna? Anyone from our participants, please?
Hello, sir. Muna ako.
Sige po, please.
Okay, I'm John Pierre Montilla from Iloilo, and I'm the president of the Kabataang Gabay sa Positibong Pamumuhay. Our work is on male survivors of violence. So that's our work. We work on issues on drugs and HIV. Thank you.
Salamat po. Who's next? Welcome. Alright. So, sino pang sunod? Wala pong mahihain sa NGO sector.
Yes po, ako po.
Yes po.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
I'm Alona Alegre, hindi po artista, but from Urda Foundation po. And our foundation po is helping the children, the marginalized children to the educational assistance. Thank you po.
Where are you based po?
Dito po sa NCR lang po.
Okay. Next po, who would like to make a self-introduction, please?
Ako po, good morning.
Morning.
I am Demi Nasol from Davao City. I'm affiliated to Pamulan Center for Indigenous Peoples Education, and we are supporting the Indigenous Youth for Education program. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'll go next po. Magandang
Yes,
umaga
please.
sa lahat. I'm Riza Labao from Cebu. I'm currently working in Ramon Aboitiz Foundation Incorporated under its Education Development Arm. Magandang umaga po ulit.
Good morning. Who's next?
Hello po, good morning po.
Good morning. Go ahead po.
I am Jerry Agbayani po. IMS Manager of Swilig Family Foundation. And Swilig Family Foundation is a non-government organization which focus on improving health conditions on rural Filipino communities by providing training programs for local government health leaders, including the governors, mayors, and provincial, and even municipal health officers to strengthen their health leadership and improve governance. Yan po.
Thank you. Who's next po?
Mag-intro po ako from Evident Integrated Marketing and PR. Good morning, I'm Dove Subing po. So, representing Evident. We are a purpose marketing agency po. We're based in Makati lang. Basically, may advocacy communications unit po kami that supports different organizations sa development sector through social and behavior change communications. Morning.
Morning. Thank you. Who's next?
Hi.
Hello.
Yes po. Go ahead.
Florence De Castro from Philippine Business for Education. We're advocating for education policies and reforms, including programs for workforce development. Thank you.
You're based in?
Makati.
Makati. All right. Who's next, please?
Hello. Hello, good
Yes,
morning.
go ahead po.
This is Noel Paulino, or the Foundation. We are a nonprofit organization working to send poor children go back to school. We are also working in communities for capacity building and livelihood. We are based in Quezon City, and we have operations in NCR, Iloilo, South Cotabato, and Marinduque. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Sige po. Go ahead. Alright. Meron pa pong hindi nakakapag self-introduction from among our participants?
Ako po. Hello, good morning. I'm Leah May Lagahit from International Care Ministries. Our organization is helping those who are living in ultra poverty by by delivering holistic programs through livelihood, health, and values training. Our area of operation is in Visayas and Mindanao, but I am located here in Quezon City. So good to see you all.
Okay, thank you. Oh, may mga bagong pasok po. You may want to make a self-introduction.
Yes, hello. I'm Ana Friami Martin. I'm from the Philippine Business for Social Progress, or PBSP. So PBSP is the largest business-led NGO, and we have programs nationwide on health, education, environment, and livelihood. And we are based in Mandaluyong City. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you. Next, please. Anyone else po na hindi pa nakakapag self-introduction? Go ahead, please.
Digital Democracy Makati Business Club.
Okay.
Mute na.
Mayroon pa po ba? I think we have more than 30 participants in the room. All right. Wala na? Anyway, we can probably go back to our self-introductions, but in the interest of time, please allow me to start our discussions this morning. Next slide, please. Basically, karamihan sa atin na nandito are from CSOs or NGOs or community-based sectoral organizations, whatever you would like to call us. But what's important is, mayroon ho tayong papel na napakahalagang ginagampanan sa lipunan ito sa ating bansa kasi we are recognized. And yan po ay nasa Philippine Constitution mismo, Article 2, Section 23, binabanggit yan na we are being encouraged to participate in the promotion of the welfare of the nation. And not only that, dahil tayo ay maraming mga community-based dito or operating in some communities, ang atin hong local government code, which is the Bible of the local governments, is also telling our local officials that they should promote the establishment and operation of people's and non-governmental organizations to become active partners in the pursuit of local autonomy. At yung Article 62, Rule 13, at saka Article 64, mas klaro pa hong sinabi doon na dapat involved tayo sa planning, implementation, and programs and projects of the LGUs. At the same time, they should provide for the criteria for our accreditation so that we can actually participate. And our participation is normally through the special bodies created by the local government code, where we select our representatives as NGOs. Anyway, we will have more of that as we progress in our discussion. Next slide, please. Now, the Department of Interior and Local Government has actually issued, and this is the latest, recently, Memorandum Circular 2021-54. We'll make sure that you get a copy of this. But basically, yung atin hong mga entry points sa operations ng local governments is on advocacy, partnership, and collaboration to achieve the purpose of the ILG and of course overall of the local government code, yung tinatawag nating participatory and responsive governance. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a snapshot of the contents of the local government code. Masyadong makapal po yung libro. But then here, dun ho sa bandang itaas, as you can see, it refers basically to what does an LGU do. Ano? Yung meron siyang power on the delivery of basic services, meron siyang regulatory power, meron din siyang power sa kanyang sariling resources, and that can include yung mga taxes and other fees na kanyang kinikreate or yung share niya sa tinatawag nating internal revenue allotment from the national government. At these resources ay meron din siyang almost exclusive authority to dispose. And I said almost kasi subject pa rin naman sila sa audit by the Commission on Audit. However, on the part of people's participation, kung saan tayo hong mga NGOs, most especially, ay very active, nandyan din yung ating papel. For example, we have a very important role if we want to, dun sa tinatawag nating recall. Ito yung petition para kahit meron lang nakapwesto and we lost confidence in them, pwede ho tayo mag-petition o sumama sa mga mamamayan ng ating locality para ipa-recall ang isang nakaupong opisyal. Nandyan naman po yung mga provisions na binabanggit sa LG, so I will not go too much into details. And then the other one is yung initiative. Of course, yung initiative naman has to do like meron tayong gustong i-propose directly na ordinansa or kaya ay policy ng local government, we can actually do that. And of course, we can participate in mandatory consultations. And kasama na po dyan yung mga assemblies at saka yung mga mandatory consultation. For example, kung ang LGU natin may plano mag-raise ng taxes or fees. The other entry point for us actually, at dito mas formal, ay yung tinatawag na representation natin sa mga local special bodies. So yung mga local special bodies can include like the local development councils, yung local health board. I noticed yung mga nasa health sector po dito. I hope you are represented there. And then meron pa ho tayong mga tinatawag na local school board. So yung mga nasa education, I hope you are represented there. And then meron pa ho tayong mga pre-qualification bids and awards committee. Ito naman yung mga nag-identify kung sino yung mga contractors for the implementation of basically yung mga malalaking projects at yung mga infrastructure and all of that. And then depende sa LGU, they can actually create special bodies where NGOs like us or CSOs like us can participate. And then meron pa rin ho tayong tinatawag, nabanggit ko na yung barangay assembly, pero meron pa rin ho tayong tinatawag na sectoral representation. So depende doon sa mukha ng ating mga local policy makers or policy bodies like sanggunians, ay pwede ho tayong magkaroon ng mga sectoral representation. I don't know if you are in your locality have like for example labor sector representative or women or PWDs. So depende na po kung ano yung mga available na mga representation na ina-allocate ng ating LGU. Next slide please. Okay, I will not be discussing in details na po itong laman ng Section 17, but basically, nandito po yung mga na-devolve na function ng national government to the local governments. At hin-highlight ko lang po yung dalawa na although in any of this, pwede namang mag-participate ang CSO. Kaya lang, itong dalawa na ito, very popular among us. Why? Kasi dito tayo madalas nakikipag-collaborate with our LGUs. So, nandyan yung health services at it's good to hear may mga NGOs tayo into health here. And then ang isa yung social welfare services. Siyempre, nandyan yung children, women, yung mga PWDs or persons with disabilities, education, and many others na pwede tayong maging active participant in our local governments. Next slide, please. In this next slide naman, ito yung mga core municipal governments. Napakarami po niyan, but then we may or may not be interested in participating. Pero of course, for purposes of our discussion today, maybe yung information services may be a very, very important part of what we can participate in for purposes of our discussions today. And next, please. Now, in the local government, marami din pong regulatory powers ang national government na na-devolve. Kasama po dyan yung reclassification of agricultural lands na doon sa right side naman compare din natin o pwede din nating ibangga doon sa processing and approval of subdivision plans. So this has got to do naman doon sa tinatawag natin na land conversion. Pwede ring may say ang mga CSOs and NGOs diyan, especially yung mga nasa environmental sector like if it would create some environmental impact. And of course, yung enforcement of environmental laws, kasama na rin. And then yung mga inspection of food products, so sanitation, health, and then quarantine of plants and animals, yung enforcement of the National Building Code, most especially for those who are advocating for seniors, for PWDs, na kailangan mayroong mga special access yung ating mga buildings. And of course, yung operation ng tricycles na exclusive sa ating LGU, especially municipalities and cities. At dito naman tayo pumapasok when we are engaged with like Tricycle and Operators and Drivers Associations or TODAS. Ano po. And then yung isa pa, yung establishment of cockpits and holding of cockfights. Hopefully, wala ka akong NGO sana na involved dyan kasi very controversial. Ano po. So, parang this is just a snapshot of where NGOs and CSOs can actually play a very, very important role with the LGUs. Next slide, please. Now, before we move on, we have our Mentimeter. Can we have there? So the Mentimeter code is 90645523. Ano po? So can we just go back to the question, please? Okay, so our question here, seeing all these things, the advocacy, collaboration, partnership opportunities that are there for us with our local governments, what do you expect to learn in this digital democracy training as it relates to your work with your LGU? Can you kindly give us your expectations before we proceed to our discussions proper of the digital democracy? Are you already there at the Mentimeter? Go ahead po. You can just type in your expectation. There at the chat box po, you can just copy that link. Okay, there, answers are coming in. So we have collaboration, digital know-how, technology, fighting disinformation. Of course, we have integration. New ways doing advocacy, yes. Use digital know-how. Yeah, from the chat box, of course, you can also write there. Clarification of LGU processes, yes. All right, so I think these are very heavy answers, and I really thank you for participating. Data is one of them, yes, of course. Okay. Information, yes. Okay, so I think the bigger letters are the most answers, right? Okay, so thank you. We can continue with that. And we will be sharing to you your answers, of course. And what I can say is, yes, you're right. All of these things that you have shared are correct. Ito ho yung mga areas where digital democracy really plays an important role. So I think we can now go ahead and I can already make an introduction. You know, in the Philippines, there are over 28,000 CSOs who are already actually members of the LSB. So not just the registered ones with the SEC and all of that, but just the members of local special bodies in the LGUs. Ganun po karami. Kaya ho iniutos na sa kanila na magkaroon ng CSO desk officers to prepare for the roles. Now, you might be asking, why do we have to have digital democracy? CSO naman kami. Well, basically, yung initiation po kasi of having a digital democracy process can be done by your LGUs or government. They can initiate and but we can take the lead in participating, and we can even assist them in identifying kung sino yung right audience, sino yung mga tatanungin, ano mga intervention na kailangan gawin. And then we can also help government to hear the concerns of the citizens kasi most of us, if not all, may mga sarili po tayong constituencies, mga stakeholders na sineserve natin. And then we can also initiate the surfacing of community concerns that should be addressed by government, because basically government cannot do a lot of things or not everything. But how does digital democracy really apply sa ating pong work as CSOs? Well, basically, yung digital democracy is the use of information and communication technologies or channels in all kinds of media. And it's, of course, computer-mediated communication. Next slide, please. And this computer-mediated communication can include internet, interactive broadcasting, digital telephony, of course, for the purpose of enhancing political democracy or the participation of citizens in democratic communication. But it does not aim to replace the traditional or face-to-face consultation. So, supplement lang po tayo, no? Complementary lang tayo. Hindi naman niya i-replace yung what is already existing. But because it is complementary, it enhances democracy or citizen participation in government decision making. Okay. All right. Next po. Next slide, please. And it is also multi-sectoral. Why? Because it involves the LGU itself, us, CSOs, other organizations, business, academe, media, and individuals. Next slide, please. And it has the participation of diverse stakeholders that can generate the widest range of ideas, actually, because everybody can participate. And that leads to a cooperation of solutions. Next, please. Now, before proceeding to the 6 steps, I would like to call in Geeta to share to us some examples of their digital democracy runs that they conducted with MBC. Geeta, may we have you, please?
Sure. Great. So the first pilot of the Digital Democracy Project was held in Pasig in 2020. So I'll ask, can we go to slide 33, please? In Pasig City, the government asked its citizens what they thought about open streets. So next slide. As you can see, over 514 people participated and voted and expressed support for open streets. Gusto nila talaga ito. But there was concerns on traffic, congestion, and illegal parking. So the success of the pilot in Pasig City led MBC to pursue another pilot run in 2021 with Pasig, Legazpi, and Iligan City, as well as with Intramuros. So in June 2021, Pasig City asked citizens what they thought about enforcing a 30-kilometer speed cap in urban centers. 471 people voted and showed that cyclists, pedestrians, and commuters agreed with the speed caps, while car owners were hesitant. Pero both groups agreed that walking and cycling improves health, reduces traffic, and is good for tourism and local businesses. Tapos noon, in July 2021, 1 month later, the Intramuros administration asked their citizens what they thought about turning General Luna into a pedestrian-only zone. 1,064 people voted, and pinakita nila na they really liked pedestrian-only streets, and they understood the benefits of walking and biking, especially pag nakatira kayo malapit sa bahay, especially when you work close to home. However, voters raised the concerns regarding road safety, parking space, accommodations for PWDs, and flooding, among others. Then, in August of 2021, the Legazpi city government wanted to better understand what support family-owned MSMEs needed to grow. 338 people voted and showed that businesses that used digital technology, they wanted support in digital transformation, but those who did not use digital technology, they wanted support in business succession planning and financial management. Yung voters also expressed concern about the sufficiency of utilities, lack of information, knowledge, and funds to register micro-businesses and to comply with rules and regulations. The lack of a go-to office that provides assistance to businesses. And finally, the voters were concerned about the Mayon volcano and its accompanying hazards. Then finally, in September 2021, in Iligan, they also asked their MSMEs about what support they need to survive, grow, and contribute to economic recovery. All respondents expressed that they did feel that the pandemic has really impacted their business, but kailangan nila ng support in marketing, financing, and digital transformation. So these were the 5 case studies that we had in 2020 to 2021 last year. So back to you, Bong.
Thank you, Gita. Just a few points that I skip on and I really intended to discuss in this part is that digital democracy is part of what we call e-governance. Of course, we all know what good governance is, and e-governance is just a part of that. You know, e-governance is just the use of digital means by public administration to exercise its function and deliver basic services. When we talk about good governance, we talk of several pillars that includes, of course, being participatory, consensus-oriented, transparent, accountable, and responsive. Of course, we in the NGO sectors are very, very familiar with this. And what I just want to emphasize is that as part of good governance, digital democracy is e-governance. Now, before we move on to the next part of our discussions, I would like to ask you again to participate in this activity. I have a question here that I would like to ask everyone. As a CSO or part of the CSO, what do you think are the issues you should consider raising with your LGU? Of course, we can once again use our Mentimeter, and it's in the chat box. Same code as earlier. You can just start typing your answers now. Go ahead, please. Do you have issues with your LGUs or in areas where you operate, whether in Makati, in Davao City, in Cebu, or elsewhere? Health, yes. Better access for PWDs, traffic, face-to-face classes. Traffic, yeah, it's a big issue. Internet infrastructure, yes. Education crisis, oh. Connectivity. Yes, a lot of it. Transparency, yeah, that's a big issue. Streets for the people and not for vehicles, right? Of course, they have funding or budget. Yes, that's why there is now a focus on budget advocacy for some NGOs. Operationalization, yes. Thank you. Thank you for your answers. And just continue putting in your answers. As I mentioned, we'll be sharing this with you later on. And of course, collaboration opportunity is also mentioned, and that's great. Implementation capacity, yes. The carrying capacity of an LGU is sometimes under question when they adopt certain projects. Okay, so thank you very much. Keep them coming. Let's now proceed to our digital democracy process. Here we have actually 6 steps. And these are the planning, surveying, open assembly, the collection and analysis of data, the closed assembly, and completing the loop of feedback mechanism. So let's start with planning. So in planning, of course, we have to identify any particular issue that we need the community's feedback on. So what issues really do we want to call the attention of our LGU on? Next. Okay, so it's really, really important for us as CSO, since we are not the ones actually implementing normally, because this is supposed to be done by the government, but in reality, we are just assisting them. However, even if we are, say, just giving them assistance or providing them with help, it's still important to we become a part of the planning process for digital democracy. And in planning, we have to, first of all, ask ourselves, why are we doing this? So we have to identify the subject for consultation. And this can be on policy, a program, or a process that needs streamlining on the part of our government, especially the local government. And then we have to identify what are the key information requirements, what we want to know from our respondents, because it's not just speaking, but the people that we represent or we serve, and who are the target stakeholders and the key sectors that need to be consulted. Can we really get everyone to speak up? Can we really consult everyone? Or shall we just do it at random? Or shall we do it by sector? Or shall we just get or select those who will be directly affected by the problem that we have identified, and how do we go about it? And actually, these particular steps here are just recommended, timeline as well, but basically intended for the LGUs. But for us, CSO participants, we can actually play a very important role in this particular activity, especially as it entails consultation with the people that we serve or the communities that we belong to. Next slide, please. All right, and of course, in conducting consultations, there are so many stakeholders. Primarily, of course, if it is a policy or intervention or something that is beyond what we can, address, it's basically the government that plays a very, very important role. And inside the government, you have a lot of players there. You have the public authorities, you have the politicians, sometimes political parties, but although at the local level, political parties are not that, active. But individual politicians are definitely, and some power players in the localities. Of course, the other stakeholders that we should consider, nandyan din yung academe, of course, like kung may existing na mga universities or other schools in the locality that can help or that may be able to help us. Of course, nandiyan yung mga kapwa natin, mga NGOs or CSOs operating in the area. Yung private sector, which can play a very, very critical role as well, depende as to what kind of policies. But nowadays, basically, halos lahat ng concerns and issues na i-involve po natin ang private sector. But of course, private sector does not only mean the business sector, but there are others like private organizations and other associations existing in our localities, kahit yung mga civic organizations who are not very active into being involved in the locality. And then yung mga media entities that can help us basically in the promotion of information and the dissemination, so that people would know what our steps or what are our advocacy and other initiatives are. Next slide, please. Now, of course, choosing a topic is sometimes difficult if we have not yet identified the problem. However, based on the experience that MBC has got with their digital democracy initiatives with some LGUs, I think it's important to hear how they did it during the DD run. So may I have now Catch to do the sharing for us? Over to you, Catch.
Thanks, Bong. So sa tingin po namin, sa pagpili ng topic, importante talaga dyan yung yung advocacies at priorities. Kunyari po, sa Pasig, yung focus ng Pasig City Transport, syempre, transportation. Gusto nilang pag-usapan ay speed limits. Mainly, gusto nilang i-lower yung speed limit sa city center in order to lessen fatalities and serious injury in car accidents. So, ibig sabihin, pag mas mababa yung speed limits, mas konti yung mga namamatay o nai-injure pag nagkakaroon ng collisions. So, alam ng Pasig City Transport na baka maging controversial yung polisiya sa mga Pasigueño. Kasi syempre naman, ang naiisip ng mga tao, pag mas mababa yung speed limit, baka mas malala yung traffic. Ang ginawa ng Pasig City, at gumamit sila ng broad topic. So, namili sila ng broad topic para makuha yung pinakamaraming opinion ng pinakamaraming tao. So, on the other hand, yung Intramuros administration naman, nakafocus sila sa heritage conservation. So, they chose a narrow topic, very specific po, pedestrianization of General Luna Street. Kasi meron na silang clear scope para sa kanilang policy. So, ibig sabihin, pag nasabi na nila kaagad kung aling street yung i-close off o aling street yung pagbabawal sa mga kotse, ma-avoid nila yung mga misconceptions na yung ibang kalye rin ay maapektuhan. So kung nakabisita na po kayo sa Intramuros at sa General Luna Street, makikita niyo po na maraming cobblestones, maraming mga importanteng church dun sa area, katulad ng San Agustin Church at Manila Cathedral. So dahil po dito, gusto ng Intramuros administration na isarado yung General Luna sa motor vehicles o sa kotse para i-promote yung tourism at i-support yung mga small businesses dun sa area. So dahil po dito, yung topic nila very clear, very specific. Sinabi nila kagad General Luna Street lang, at para ma-avoid yung mga off-topic debates o yung mga hindi kailangan po na pag-usapan dahil hindi naman yung kasama yung street na yun. So dahil dyan, balik po tayo sa Bong, makikita natin na yung pagiging broad o pagiging narrow ng topic ay nakadepende sa agenda ng CSO o ng LG. Bong?
Yes, thank you, Taj. Let me just correct myself on the LGU. So it's not just an LGU that was involved. There was actually an agency, the Intramuros administration. Okay, so let's continue on. And we just had the planning. Now let's talk about the survey. Of course, when we say survey, for purposes of our discussion, this is the formulation of the questions that we would be asking the people, of course, whom we intend to get the feedback on. And then in making questions, how questions are created and phrased is a very crucial in the process. And ang suggestion is when we formulate our survey questions, they should be, just like in this other survey, clear and specific, simple and in concrete language. We avoid jargons and abbreviations. Mamaya let's check on that. And then we avoid redundancy and biases. We adhere to the Data Privacy Act. And then we do the testing or pre-testing, actually, of the survey. So next slide, please. In this next slide, we'll go back to our Mentimeter. There are 5 sample questions here that I would like to request your comments on. Are they good survey questions? Why or why not? Of course, you can go back to our Mentimeter and using the same code. Okay. And we have now the Mentimeter. The first question, please. Okay, so the first question is, do you agree that PWDs should be provided with assistive devices by the LGU for free? Why or why not? Okay. The answer for why or why not can be written on the chat box, please. You can just put there your explanation. Okay, so some says we're not in the middle. They say it's a bad question. Okay. Why or why not? Why is it a bad question? What did you notice? You can put that in the chat box. Seems like we're divided almost, but being a bad question is quite a bit higher. All right, medyo madaming jargon. Agree. Yes. What else? We just said we avoid using what? We avoid using abbreviations. Yes, we don't use abbreviations in surveys as much as possible because not everybody is aware what that means, right? Yes. Okay, can we proceed to the next one? The second answer. So what is your gender? Is it a bad or a good question? And why? Oh, okay. So we're in the middle now. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Maybe let's elaborate a little. As it relates to the first question, of course, is this necessary to ask in the survey? Yes. Okay. Yeah, maybe because it entails services. So it depends on the topic. Yes. Maybe. Okay. For purposes of inclusivity, yes, agree. Okay. By the way, you can actually unmute your mic if you like to explain or expound. It's all right. Anyone? Okay. Or shall we proceed now to the third question? Okay. The third question is: are PWDs important to local development? Why or why not? Is this a good survey question? You can unmute anytime if you like to expound on your answer. You will be helping us understand better your take on this. How about those who mentioned PWDs earlier in the discussion? I like that question. What do you think by important? All citizens are equal. See? That's why it's a bad question to her. Yes. May bias na, ano po? May bias na kaagad. Sa tanong pa lang. Okay. And it should not have been asked in the first place. Miss Anna, would you like to discuss your answer? I actually I like it. Miss Ana Leia from La Protección de la Infancia. Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to give input for both sex and gender and then the PWDs. Just to clarify, yes. When we're discussing sex and gender, sex is the biological physical aspect. Gender kasi is more internal. So, and it's sort of optional. So when you're making policies relating to governance, you don't ask, do you feel like you're bisexual or like, that's not the point. The point is, do you feel like you're male, female? Are you transgendered? It's more like that inclusivity rather than gender. So whoever asks that kind of question must be given gender sensitivity training. So, so secondly, about PWDs, why are you putting them in a different category? Everybody should be considered equal, whether senior, not senior, millennial or whatever. Whether you're able or disabled, it should not matter. Everybody should be considered important, especially the most vulnerable. So in fact, they're more important in many ways because they're more vulnerable, the PWDs.
Thank you, Ms. Anna. But believe me, some LGUs actually ask questions like that. So it's important that we CSOs, NGOs are there, to guide them or to give them some sort of guidance.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think so.
yeah.
So it means that the LGUs should be given basic training on equality.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. Can we now proceed to the last question? Okay, this is the last question. Should PWDs be consulted on a program that affects them? Why or why not? Is this a good survey question or a bad one? Okay. Of course, again, you can put on the chat box or you can unmute yourself to say why. So we're again almost divided. So I hope you're seeing, how important it is to craft our survey questions. And as CSO participants, especially in the LGUs who might be conducting digital democracy process like what we want them to do, is that we are there to raise questions, guide them, tell them that, this question is biased, this question is unfair, this is unnecessary. What do we exactly want to gather? Is this relevant to the problem that we want to address? So our role is really that critical. And so we really encourage the participation of CSOs because basically we're more gender sensitive. When we're more sensitized. Yes, there are GAD or gender and development officers that are appointed in the LGUs, but well, there's so much to be desired when it comes to really seeing LGUs implement gender and development at their level. Okay, so thank you once again for participating. Of course, in the interest of time, we need to move forward with our discussions. And at this time, we will be moving on to the third step, which is the holding and opening a citizen assembly. Basically, again, we ourselves cannot call for an assembly because we're NGOs or CSOs. Of course, among our stakeholders we can, but we cannot call it a people's assembly because that's the government's role to do, especially the LGUs. However, assuming that they're calling for an assembly, we can of course always participate and proactively give them our pieces of advice. And in the open assembly, basically it's of course, sending the invitation and gathering people in the LGU, civil society, academia, all the stakeholders that we mentioned earlier on. If it is offline, we can do the same if it is online. However, of course, there's so much limitation when it is online because if we do not have the emails, we will just be relying on announcements on social media, for example, or maybe announcement on media. So it's really difficult. Unlike in offline, we can just call the barangay captain if it is the LGU doing it, or if it is us, we can just ask for permission and we can already do it. Of course, in doing citizen assembly, we need also to consider some experts who can provide us with their opinions and probably studies if they have one, so they can help us, especially in physical meetings. And then contextualizing the issues and concerns, and at the same time, we ensure the diversity of the construction, or rather the constitution of the assembly. In other words, we have to be very, very, how should I put it, detailed in who are we going to get into this kind of citizen assembly. And in choosing who to be invited in the citizen assembly, let's hear again the experience of the project that MBC did So let's have Gita and to share with us and on how they chose their participants. Gita, over to you.
Yeah. Maraming salamat, Bong. So really, ang natutunan namin mula sa digital democracy process is that who is invited to an opening or closing citizen assembly entirely depends on the priorities of the LGU. For example, in Iligan City, the LGU invited a big group of people, including local bank representatives, students, freelancers, government officials, small business owners. The government invited a variety of participants dahil they wanted to hear from a lot of people, and then they wanted to bring many heads together to provide feedback to the government. So that's something to consider. Pero sa Legazpi City naman, the LGU was most interested in hearing from small business owners. So during their citizen assemblies, a larger number of small business owners were invited to participate with the aim of increasing the reach of the questionnaire, and also hearing recommendations from talaga the affected people. So nakikita natin that although both cities had the same issue to consider, supporting small businesses, MSMEs, the approach on who to invite to the assembly really depended on the LGU's priorities. So in your case, the CSO can also advise the government and also bring up your own priorities in this area. Back to you, Bong.
Thank you, Gita. All right, let's now proceed. Of course, doon pa rin tayo sa selection of participants. Next slide, please. I have a question here for you. You can go back to the Mentimeter. Of course, in inviting participants to community assemblies, we always see to it that there are community ambassadors or influencers that we should invite because their voices are, important. So in your case, can you identify who these community ambassadors or influencers are in the locality? Okay, you can start typing your answers now on the Mentimeter. Barangay captain, of course. Teachers, very influential. The Marites. Your youth organization, the priest, if they're willing to participate, sectoral leaders, they are important. President of the seniors, president of the PWDs, and other sectors, SK, faith-based leaders, yes, community leaders, the citizens, of course. But we're just talking of the ambassadors, who can speak for a number, for some important sectors that have to have a voice. So thank you very much for this. I think we're very clear on what we want to really achieve in these discussions. Okay, so you can just continue on. Yes, to the members, of course, especially their officers, it's very important to hear them out, especially if it affects them. The IP leaders in certain communities, yes, where they are present, it's important to always listen to them. All right, so just continue on putting in your answers, and let's now proceed to the next slide. Of course, we now talk about the collection and analysis of the data. We have planned, we have done the surveying and all of that, and then now it's important that we disseminate the survey and we also collect, of course, and then process the results. Next slide, please. Okay, so of course here we have to consider some possible approaches, maybe tools on holding meetings and online events, if it's online, getting the feedback, and then in some cases, we can provide tokens. For example, in the last election sa local, ang ginawa po namin is we use Google survey kasi yung Google survey, automatically pwede mong i-collect yung email address nila. Pero to make sure na ma-appreciate naman ng mga sinurvey, yung nag-participate sa survey, ay nilagay din namin dun sa dulo na if you want to get the results of this survey, kindly retype your email below. So we did, and pinadala namin talaga sila ng results. In some social media platforms, you will see there, nagbibigay sila ng badge dun sa active participants. Maybe we can also do that. Or kung mayroong ginather na assembly, maybe we can provide a certificate of attendance. Tayo po kasi mga Pilipino, mahilig tayo na when we participate in something, we want a proof, right? And so, of course, yung media na gagamitin natin in our approaches. Next, please. And when we talk about tools, we can, as I mentioned, could be online meetings through these platforms. Marami na tayong platforms ngayon. Or we can also visualize and analyze the data. Yung Google, may automatic, pwede na kaagad makuha through Excel. And then, of course, yung visualization and analysis of the data. Maganda rin, may mga graphs and all of that. And of course, yung programming language, which should be the problem, that technical processing of the data. Next, please. And of course, there are challenges to these things. Number one, yung access, maganda ba ang internet sa inyong lugar, kung yung online. Marami ba naka-smartphone? Marami bang may laptops or computers? And then of course, the cost, the technology, and yung trust, importante yan. Although sa survey naman natin, sa national, isa sa most trusted source of information talaga ang mga LGUs. Sinasabi naman yan. So wala tayong magiging masyadong problema if we are working together with our LGU. And of course, the security of the data that are collected, which leads me to the next, which is data privacy. Next slide, please. Of course, in data privacy, importante po before we collect data, or especially private information or personal information, may consent. So we normally put it there. And then yung relevance ng question, yung age halimbawa, yung address, so relevant pa talaga siya doon sa survey, yung access din, and then yung limits. And then of course, when we say limits, for how long can we hold on to the data that we collected? May nasa Data Privacy Act naman po yung mga ganyang requirements. All right, so next slide, please. I think I'm going to turn you over again to Catch to show us their LGU experience using communication channels. Over to you, Catch.
Thanks, Bong. So, nung nag-Digital Democracy Run kami, nung 2020 and 2021, siguro lahat na-try namin na communication material. So, we did social media, text blasts, emails. We also reached out to local CSOs, pati homeowners associations. Ang natutunan namin, one, important na gamitin yung local language sa pag-promote ng survey. Kunyari sa Iligan City, lahat ng promotional materials namin, English and Cebuano. Ito yung request ng local government unit, English and Cebuano. Sa Legazpi City din naman, lahat ng citizen assemblies naka-Filipino. Two, yung channel or website na ginagamit nyo para mag-collect ng information, sometimes can determine the tone of the feedback. So during our Digital Democracy Run in 2021, we did two things. Respondents submitted their votes via Facebook and via Polis. So we noticed that the suggestions we received from Facebook are more extreme compared to the Polis comments. So kunyari dun sa Polis, yung comments more detailed, especially coming from their disagreements and concerns. So yung mga tao, ine-explain nila kung bakit sila nagdi-disagree, kesa lang nagdi-disagree ng walang explanation. Napansin namin sa Facebook comments, usually frustration yung lumalabas, pero hindi yung mga policy recommendations na hirapan kami kunin galing doon. So a reminder for all that it may be easier to get comments on social media and on digital media, but it may not necessarily represent all sectors, and some respondents may be hesitant to voice out their concerns publicly. Back to you, Bong.
Thank you, Catch. Yes, of course, it's important to take note of what she just said. Pag social media, mahirap talaga i-determine kasi anybody can actually participate, and it's so hard to really validate. Okay, so let's move on to my next, before the coffee break. Let's have a little exercise here. This is about which social media channel is the most effective for you to conduct an online survey. Okay, so let's go back to our Mentimeter. We have 8
Hi, Bong.
choice.
Sorry, 1 second lang. Sorry, Bong.
Yeah.
Maybe
Alright.
while they're taking their coffee or while they're preparing
Mhm.
their tea, they could also answer this opinion survey. But otherwise, we can go straight to our coffee break now.
All right. Yeah, that's better. All right.
Sige, sige.
While
While
taking your
you're
coffee break.
preparing your tea, while you're doing your coffee, please do click this. But feel free at this point to go get what you need.
The Digital Democracy Project uses online platforms to gather citizens' thoughts. Polis is the online surveying tool being used in this project. It's a way to gather open-ended feedback from large groups. Group of people online. Polis is the Digital Democracy Project uses online platforms to gather citizens' thoughts. Polis is the online surveying tool being used in this project. It's a way to gather open-ended feedback from large group of people online. Polis is powered by artificial intelligence or AI. City governments around the world use it to inform decision-making. In fact, it was used by the Taiwanese government to decide on issues around Uber and other ride-sharing apps. These are the 3 stages to initiate an online conversation: create, vote, and analyze. In the first stage, create, city government employees and MBC staff create a polis conversation by adding statements to vote on. Then, we invite participants to the conversation. In the second stage, vote, the conversation is run online. Participants click on a link to arrive at a survey where they can vote agree, disagree, or pass on statements in the conversation. Participants may also add statements of their own and have other participants vote on them. In the final stage, analyze, the voting behavior of participants is analyzed by AI in real time. Our data science partner, LayerTech, analyzes the information and is presented to the city government for their action. Makati Business Club and the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung organized the Citizen Assembly. It aims to support governments in measuring public opinion and to use technology to gather citizen input to improve initiatives, programs, and policies.
All right, that ends our coffee break. I hope nakakuha rin naman kayo ng inyong coffee, tea, or even water. So before we begin again, I would like to invite everyone to follow and like us on social media to keep yourself updated on our events. The link to our pages are on screen and is also being shared on the chat box now. So please do click on our links right now. Thank you. I'll now hand the floor back to Bong to continue our discussion. Bong?
Thank you, Gita. All right, let's now proceed to our discussions. Next slide, please. By the way, all these discussions, medyo mabilis so tayo for in the interest of time, but don't worry because you will have your handouts and those would contain everything and even more of what we have talked about. Now let's talk about data analysis, which is of course making sense of the digital democracy responses getting from or taking off from the data to information. Next slide, please. All right, so in the data analysis, of course, the first question is, who can analyze your data? Should it be in-house or shall we get the help of the national government, the private sector, or the academe? Normally kasi pagka may mga ginagawa tayong mga survey, especially this is quite technical, we can and we are not equipped with the capability to do the analysis. We can farm it out or collaborate with some other agencies. And madalas dyan kung may university present in the locality, pinakamagandang partner pagdating sa surveys ang mga universities. Ano po? Next, please. And then what should we do with the data we collect? Before that, you can actually get some help from the tools that we use from these open data sources that are available. Although if it's a local survey, baka hindi naman natin masyadong kailanganin yung karamihan dito. Okay, so taking off from the project that was conducted by MBC on digital democracy, let's hear from them kung sino yung kanilang tinap to do the data analysis for them. And I think it is a company called LayerTech. So back to you, Gita.
Maraming salamat, Bong. Sa unang Digital Democracy Run in 2020 in Pasig, we had the benefit of Polis founder Colin McGill. He explained the data received from the survey to us. So if you can see on the right side of the screen, yan ang data namin. Pero in 2021, we didn't have that benefit, and we realized that although Polis has some data analysis, we needed more. So in 2021, we partnered with our data science partner, LayerTech, based in Albay, to provide an analysis of the data and generate insights on the feedback collected through the poll. In your own LGU, we recommend identifying when working with your LGU as a CSO, we recommend identifying very early on who will be conducting the data analysis of your information. Meron ba kayong team member who can do data analysis, or kailangan ba ninyo ng external partner? Whatever the decision may be, it's best to reach out early and have the partner analyst review the survey questions before it's launched. I hope that's clear. Back to you, Bong.
Yes, thank you. Okay, next slide please. Sa inyo pong palagay, kayo po, pwede rin po dito sa chat box or sa Mentimeter again. Who comes to mind when you need someone to analyze your data? Assuming you're in a particular locality or NGO, you can just put here the name of anyone you think can help you analyze your data. You can start typing now. University student, yes. IT tech, yes. NGO, M&E officer, yes. We do have our M&E meal or whatever you call them. Sometimes Mel. Okay. Yes. Statisticians, yes. Marami tayong resources. Some of you have in-house data team, and that's great to hear. So thank you for sharing that. Ayun, bukod pala sa meal, meron pang MERL sa ating mga organization, and that's great. Okay, so let's proceed now to the next one, which is the fifth step, the closing the citizen assembly. Of course, here basically the work is to present the results and analysis for the co-creation of policies and programs, and in doing so, we have to basically create a report of what we have done. And the first part usually is the executive summary, as you are well aware of. And then you can also do some informal side sessions and trial runs or pre-testing again. And then, of course, after doing all these things, it's very important to have a handover by the assembly to the decision maker. So in the conduct of this particular assembly, it's important that some, if not all, decision makers are also present. It's also important that we promote, kasi if we don't share and promote, the public wouldn't know about it. So it's important to build a constituency, build some pressure to be able to do that. Now, let's see the results of what MBC did on their digital democracy runs in the 4 cities. May I turn you back to Catch? Catch, over to you.
Thanks, Bong. Okay, so sa Pasig 2020, the policymakers, so in our end, Vico Soto and the Pasig City Transport, sabi nila helpful yung discussion kasi nakikita nila yung areas kung saan nag-agree at nagdi-disagree yung mga constituents sa kanilang polisiya. So sa areas of agreement, so kung saan nag-agree yung constituents sa LGU, alam nila kung anong ginagawa nilang tama. Sa areas ng disagreement, alam nila kung ano yung kailangan pa nila improve. So kunyari, on the issue of active transportation, very divisive yan. Not everybody agrees that pedestrians can or should walk on roads. Sa Pasig, yung mga respondents divided sila o hindi sila nag-agree kung pwedeng maglakad yung mga pedestrians sa kalye. Yung mga nakakotse, ayaw nila na sakali naglalakad yung pedestrians kasi nga baka naman ma-clip o matamaan. Yung mga pedestrians naman, sinasabi nila na kailangan nila maglakad sa kalye. Kasi hindi sa lahat ng area may enough na or may sapat na sidewalk. So yung mga Pasigueños, hindi sila nag-agree dun sa issue na yon, pero parehong car users at non-car users, nag-agree sila na yung mga urban places, so sa cities, ganun, kailangan ng areas kung saan pwedeng maglakad at maglaro ng maayos ang mga bata. Because of this, the project team recommended that the Pasig City Transport Office frame their policy as a child safety initiative, in addition to being an active transportation measure. So in 2021, the Pasig City Transport Office was considering imposing lower speed limits. But based on the results, a lot of people had concerns regarding lower speed limits, including more traffic, including congestion in an already very, very tight city center. So because of the result, Pasig City said that they'll focus on the consistency of enforcement in order to address the concerns of people before going for a full rollout of lower speed limits. In Legazpi City, the Citizen Assembly benefited from the support of Mayor Noel Rosal, who expressed his commitment to improve ease of doing business in Legazpi. We may have somebody in the audience now who's from Legazpi. If Miss Rose from the Albay Chamber is in the audience now, could we ask you to share a bit po, Ms. Rose, kung ano yung ginawa ng government para i-address yung issue of ease of doing business?
Oh, actually, Catch, Ms. Rose will be here tomorrow and she can share a bit then.
Okay, sige. We can hear from Ms. Rose tomorrow. So Mayor Rosal explained that yung Citizen Assembly nila sa Legazpi, it provided Legazpi City with a measuring tool for improving government services in collaboration with private partners. As for last meeting with representatives of Legazpi, it's on its way to craft an ordinance around the subject of supporting small businesses. Last, in Iligan City, the results of the Citizen Assembly are being used to craft plans to support small business as well. These plans will be reviewed now that election season is over. Turning back to you, Bong, for the last step.
Yes, thank you, Catch, for that. And now we're into the closing the feedback loop as the last step. Okay, so may we have the next slide? Of course, this is basically enacting the observable actions resulting from the consultations that have been done under a digital democracy approach. And here we have basically 3 levels of institutionalization. So it's still very important. Of course, we begin with level 1, which is the LGU, initiating digital democracy initiatives, and it has to be supported basically by executive orders, office memorandum, and formal invitations, and of course with our prodding as CSOs. And then we do the next step, which is the legislation. That means we get the Sanggunian to pass an ordinance adopting it, and then the full implementation supported by legislation and documented partnership, especially if possible with us as a key stakeholder, and creating the action plan where the process of kasi di ba minsan ang sasabihin sa inyo, meron na ho tayong existing na ordinansa related to that, pero as we see it, kulang o kaya hindi naman nakaangkla doon sa digital democracy kasi doon pa rin sa luma na sistema, which is of course offline. And then we set the agenda and consider the possible next step and prepare to execute this plan. So in the creation of the action plan to institutionalize digital democracy, it's really very important to tell the LGU na hindi naman ho ito talaga bago kasi this is supported by the Constitution, supported by the law, as was mentioned in the opening of our discussions. Next slide, please. Of course, this is a cycle by which it's very important that there is an understanding of the context, and we identify the objectives and the analysis, the data set, the sources, the properties, and the preparation, the modeling and evaluation and deployment, where we integrate the insights that are generated into results into the and decision-making process of the LGU. And we as civil society organizations can actively participate in the entire process and help our LGUs in being able to deploy all these processes and repeat basically what we have gone through in this process. All right. So again, I will be asking your participation in this Mentimeter question. Next slide, please. Based on what we have discussed. Oh, sorry, meron pa pala akong isang may iwan. By the way, this is the action plan that we would be requesting from your end in our workshop tomorrow. But let me just give you an introduction on this. So basically, this is the template where we will put in the results of our workshop. Of course, we have to have the objectives, planning for consultation for one, the creation, the questionnaire, the collection, the feedback, etc. And then the next one would be the task to be done and the resources needed for them to be implemented, and the expected outcomes or outputs from these activities. You can also put in the timeline, how long will it take, although it's not that critical at this time. But however, it's what we really need to see is as an NGO actively participating in your LGU, we would like to seek your inputs on what particular issues or concerns you would like to raise with your LGU and how you would go about it. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, so this is the question that I was mentioning. Please go again to your Mentimeter, same code. Based on what we have discussed so far, what do you think can you best suggest to your LGUs to address surface issues, meaning you have already conducted your consultation and everything. So what do you think should you suggest to your LGU? Should it be a policy, a program, an intervention? Well, when we say intervention, it's something that is more of a short term and immediate. And then, or can we do suggest all of the above? Mentimeter, please. All right. Oh, it's very fast. It's already there. Okay. All right. All right. Okay. Any more? Any more? Yes. Okay, I can see that all of you are saying all of the above can actually be suggested to the LGU. Yes, depending on your situation, because you are in the best position to actually determine what is most necessary or what is most imperative at the moment. Okay, thank you for your active participation once again.